Hello, this is John Mann, and I'm with you today explaining Appreciative 360 information so that you will have a general idea of what you're doing when you're working on your 360 assessment. The first thing that we're going to do is an introduction to what is a 360 assessment or survey. A 360 assessment or survey typically and historically has been one where you will fill out a survey assessment or questions about yourself, and then you will do so, and you will then ask your supervisor to do the same questions or survey or assessment about you. You then will also ask a peer to do so, and then you will ask 4 to 6 people who work for you to fill them out. And that has been a typical situation for a 360 assessment. Oftentimes they've been 70 to 120 questions and in areas around standards. Now, what's our Appreciative 360 process? It is a little bit different, though it does have some of the same things. Well, how is it different? The Appreciative 360 has 6 or 7 open-ended questions. So instead of 70 to 120 questions, you have 6 or to 7 open-ended questions that you'll be filling out. Now, the way that it is alike is you will still fill it out yourself. You will still ask your supervisor to fill out those 6 to 7 questions about you. You will ask a peer to fill out the 6 or 7 questions, and you will ask 4 to 6 people who work for you to fill them out. And in our case, they will be instructional personnel. We have found, working with public school administrators, that the instructional personnel working with the standards and assessment works much, much better. The other thing that's very different about an Appreciative 360 process and the questions that we're doing versus a more typical one is this one is weighted and has a huge emphasis on strengths. So there will be 4 to 5 questions about strengths and 1 question about areas of needing to improve. Now, there's a reason for that we'll talk about a little later. Secondly, why should we be engaging in this process? Well, the process of an Appreciative 360, we should be engaging in this process because it is an opportunity for growth. Sometimes you will be asked to participate in the Appreciative 360 as you're working through certain jobs or levels or things, but you may also choose and say, I want to work more appropriately and more effectively on my own development as I go forward. And so you may choose to work on it yourself as well. Any of those reasons is just fine. But the reason is, when we think about and we look at the research, we know that we can gain a great deal more if we spend most of our time working from areas that we have some levels of competence, some levels of ability, and trying to push those areas as far as we possibly can to help in our own development, but also what we're doing for others. It doesn't mean that we do not work on an area that we may need improvement, because that is a part of it as well. But oftentimes, if you work only from areas of extreme need, you may be able to bring them up some, but you may never have the growth and the attainment of goals during a year that you would hope to. So that's the reason, one of the reasons for this change in focus. What's the purpose of our 360 process? The purpose is for personal growth, to grow as a person, to also do so in a format that is supportive, but also promotes growth. 80% of what we do, if we can work from those areas that are of our greatest strength, it is going to benefit us and the organization with whom we work. Outcomes. What are the outcomes for this? Well, the outcomes are very simple. At the end of this process, in approximately 5 to 6 weeks, when you get the information back, you will then be working on 3 to 4 personal goals for the year. And now those personal goals for the year, they may be multi-year goals. So it may just be that you're starting them now, and they may be for more than 1 year. But you're going to be developing your personal goals, 3 or 4 of those, for this year or multiple years. And you're going to be working from this information that you receive that is developed around the state standards or the the evaluation areas that you may be using within your district or your school or whatever you may be using. So it's customized to use whatever it is you're using. What are the steps to complete this process? Well, the steps to complete the process are simple, but we do have to follow with those. So after you have accepted and that you're going to take part in this program, then what you have to do, your name has been turned in, then you will receive a confirmation from the Appreciative 360 site. And that will be coming through Gmail at appreciative360@gmail.com. And you will receive information from them to fill out your assessor's list. Now, your assessor's list we've already talked about, and that is you're going to put in your supervisor, you're going to put in your name, and you're going to put in a peer. So if you're an assistant principal, that would mean you would put in another assistant principal. Now, these people who you are asking to fill these out should know you very well. So you're asking, you're putting them down, their email address down, but you also need to be contacting them and telling them what it is they're in for and what they should be expecting to come. Because one of the big hang-ups is, if we don't get the information back in, we can't process it to send it to you. So then you have one peer, and then you have 4 to 6. In a case of an assistant principal, it would be 4 to 6 teachers, specialists, other instructional personnel that work for you. And so you would be asking all of them if they would participate in this and let them know that that would be coming. Now, you can also tell them that the peer and the 4 to 6 teachers or specialists or other instructional personnel that you've asked, those people, their information will be anonymous. So it will be coming to you in an anonymous form. Obviously, self is not anonymous because you know what you wrote, and your supervisor isn't generally considered anonymous. So the supervisor generally isn't considered anonymous, and those two generally will be in a different color so that you know what your supervisor wrote, you know what you wrote, of course, and then you have all the other information which will not be specified as to a person who said it. What else then do we do? After we have turned in the list back to the Appreciative 360 site, what do we do next? Well, the next thing that occurs is that within a week, all of those people will receive their survey, in this case questionnaire, to fill out. And how it will come to them is, it will come with your name and then a hash mark and then a dash and then Appreciative 360. And so that's what will be coming to them. So that's what they should be looking for. And it'll be coming from the email, appreciative360@gmail.com. They then will be responsible to fill those out. There's a 2-week turnaround for that. We do check, and it's really best if they fill them out, and we ask them to fill them out within 1 week, because it is only 6 or 7 questions according to your district and or the school that you work in and your own assessment system. So that's not very many. Yes, they're open-ended, but it is still isn't very many. Then what occurs is after we receive enough of the information back, it takes us about a week to process, and we then provide your summary sheets that come to you with the information from all of the people that have sent in their answers and their ideas and their stories about you. And so that's the process, and it takes 5 weeks if everything goes well, 6 weeks to 6.5 weeks if there's any delays. And so that's what we do. The next thing that we're going to talk about in our introduction and information session are some of our frequently asked questions. And the first one was that people asked me, wanted to make sure that I shared with you, was how long does this process take to get all the information back? I've already told you. 5 to 6.5 weeks. In that period, you will get your information, should all be done. But this is dependent on if you made sure and asked all permission of all those people that you turned in their names to us. When you have made that personal contact with them and said, here's what's coming, it's going to be 6 or 7 questions, you would know which one it was according to your own situation. And it's very important for you to, if you agree to do this, to get it back within a week. If you do that, then it goes very smooth. If you just send us their names without checking, then sometimes it doesn't go very smooth at all. So what are things that I can do to make it go smoother? I just answered that piece. And the other thing that you can do is, this is to understand this is a very positive approach to your own personal goal setting and your own personal development. And you're going to really love it. And I want to emphasize that it is it's a very fulfilling experience, and one that I think you will really appreciate and enjoy being a part of. The last thing is, what's the one piece that people don't fill out correctly the most? And that is the last question. And that is the question that asks for a story. So when you're talking about a story, we're talking literally about a story. And during one of our other videos, I'm going to give you an example of a story when we're talking about that process of giving feedback and or preparing for our feedback sessions. So a story is different than a summary of your positive traits. A story is literally starts with, Joe did this and this. He assisted me when he did this. It's actually a story that comes from that person and something that they saw or participated with you in, and they start with, I saw, or he did, and I was so appreciative. And so that's the type of story that we're looking for. All right, I hope that this short information session, an introduction to Appreciative 360 assessment process, I hope that it assists you, and I look forward to working with you through this process. I want to make sure and remind you that not only can you gain this information from the video that you're now watching, but also there are information sheets on the site and or that will be emailed to you, whichever is the most appropriate in your situation. And so not only do you have the opportunity to watch the video and watch it again if you need to, but also you do have information sheets that will correspond with some of the things and may give even more detail than what I've shared through the video. Thank you again.